that many of which were new to me as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and take the question. Says this meeting is being live streamed. Okay, I got it. There you go. Okay, so you have any questions?
Do I have questions from online?
Okay.
Oh no, I was saying, okay, so you want me to take the questions from online first?
Well, last week we took questions from here first. So this
Okay.
from online because they're like behind. Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I have some from last week. So, and everyone who's on Zoom, if you have a question, just send it to me, or just tell me that you do. So the one from last week is from Brud Sundari. She says, sometimes service that we do seems to be perfectly in line with our material nature, our skills, desires, ambitions. In such a case, one might identify with a specific service very strongly, but be wrongly motivated without knowing it. How to avoid mistaking our desires for desires of our Guru and Krishna when one is not the saranagata yet?
Yes, I understand the question. And I'll tell you a story that sheds light on the answer. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, of course, as you know, he opened many monasteries, 64, throughout India, which is quite a extraordinary campaign. And on visiting, I believe the month of the monastery in Madras, the devotee who was leading the other devotees there made it a point to point out to Saraswati Thakur, his guru, their guru, that so-and-so, Das, Brahmachari, one of the monks there, was rendering such nice service. He was active, organizing different programs and so on and so forth. And so the leader wanted to underscore this other monk's service to their guru, and further, so to speak, introduce that disciple to Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta. And so Saraswati Thakur asked for that disciple to come. And so he came and paid his respects, and Saraswati Thakur said, I've heard you're very enthusiastic in your service here, and that you're doing this and this, and you've organized this program, and so on and so forth. He said, yes, Guru Maharaj, by your grace, He said, very good. So I want you to leave tonight, go to Calcutta. I've got a dishwashing job there, something like that. Take over. So he said, yes, Guru Maharaj, as you desire. Then Saraswati Thakur said, well, on a second thought, you can stay. So basically, he was checking him to see if he had identified more with his propensities for serving, or whether he was identifying with the prestige that was obviously coming from the service that he was doing, which is just a weed. If you're going to grow a vine and you have to water it, so forth, but the weeds may come also. You may mistake the weed for the plant, and you have to be vigilant to take out the weeds. So there is an anartha, or a weed, if you will, to continue with that analogy in terms of rendering the Sanskrit term anartha, that there are types that can arise in the context of bhakti. There are those that may arise from previous bad or good karma. There are those that may arise from making offense, and another type here, the type that may arise just in the context of bhakti. Because when we engage in bhakti seriously, well, we might become famous. We might become, we might get money, fame, and we might position among, in the rank and file amongst devotees, and be distinguished from others, and so on and so forth. So these things are not the results that we're looking for. We're looking for a love of Krishna and to intensify and grow our serving ego. And they come to again, kind of like ghosts of the enjoying and exploiting ego, coming to take you back, to the haunted house or heart, where the desires that constitute our bondage to material existence have been rooted for a long time. So we're trying to chase them out, right? And we can chase them out, but the ghosts of them may, as I say, may still be lingering around, come to try to recapture us. So we have to be vigilant about that. And so your question is along those lines. How can I be vigilant in answering it? I'm just underscoring the fact that, this is a distinct possibility. This can happen. I've seen it happen many, many, many times. And, in one sense, the answer to your question is the question itself, which is asked in earnest. So if we're earnest about our practice enough to think about this possibility and look at ourselves, be introspective, look at ourselves and try to analyze, what is my motive in this? Why am I doing this service? I like it because let's say I like to sing. Let's say I was a singer in a garage band. I was myself. Long time ago. It's literally a garage band. And so then now I'm doing that now. Let's say someone's doing that now in kirtan, and devotees like to hear. So am I singing because I like to sing and hear my own voice? Am I playing the drum, which I've learned very nicely because I like to show off, or is that part of it? There was a godbrother of mine who was famous for kirtan and playing the mridanga. He was previously a more than a garage band musician, right? On the verge of making it in the rock scene, but he became a devotee instead. So his propensity for singing all was utilized, expressed in Krishna consciousness. But one time in Vrindavan, in the Krishna Balaram Mandir in India, he was leading the kirtan, and it was a large group of devotees. And so the kirtaneer who would lead the singing had the microphone, and Prabhupada's room there from the temple is kind of out the side door and around the corner. And anyway, he was in range that he could hear the lead singer. And he was leading the kirtan, and then Prabhupada called for another devotee and said, "Who is that Rakshasa leading the kirtan?" That's not a complimentary term, Rakshasa. It's like a ghost. To use that, refer back to that analogy. So Prabhupada detected in his voice, just hearing the voice, that the motive in his heart, he was getting intoxicated by. Check it out. I'm leading a big group of devotees here, or whatever. Watch me play the drum, kind of thing. Got the best of him, and Prabhupada could feel it through the sound of his voice. So, well, embarrassing, but we want to be corrected, right? We want to be corrected. So fortunately, we have a good guide, then he or she can help us in this regard. And we should know that we have such help at hand, and we can turn to even proactively to such senior, to our guru, and pose the question, if we can't arrive at the answer ourselves by the kind of introspection and self-analysis that your question itself is illustrative of or represents. So we shouldn't go through our practices mindlessly and mechanically. We should be introspective and always searching out what is our motive and understanding that bhakti is really all about the motive and the feeling and the intention than it is the action itself. There are actions themselves that are, to use the Sanskrit term, srupsiddha bhakti. So they are bhakti inherently. Let's say chanting the name of Krishna is inherently bhakti. Whatever your motive is, whatever you're thinking, it will have some benefit. But we shouldn't take such statements about the efficacy of such practices that even done mindlessly will have a positive effect as we should take such statements as impetus to chant mindfully, because what to speak of what you can get by mindlessly, you can get something. The implication, the import of those type of statements, which are true, but the import is that you're supposed to think, oh, well, what to speak if I do it with mindfulness and with whole heart, what kind of result I will get. It should be served to assist us in that way. Not that we think, yeah, it's said in the Bhagavad, even chanting in your sleep will be effective. So that's when I do my rounds, my daily chanting, So don't think like that, right? We have examples that are extreme in a sense to underscore the point that I'm making is that the intention and the motivations was really what it's all about. After all, bhakti is really complete, if you will, or bhakti proper has been attained when the motions that we're going through now have served to cleanse the heart, the consciousness of other desires and distractions and so forth, and then some actual spiritual feeling, trans-psychological emotions arise. That's Bhava Bhakti. So the whole purpose of going through the motions is to have emotions that transcend our material emotions. They have being reposed as they are in an object, Krishna, that's eternal, where they're not going to be like our material emotions that are reposed in objects that aren't eternal, and therefore they themselves won't be of an eternal nature. So bhakti proper is when we do those hearing, chanting, offering the lamp, and so forth, but we're doing it out of spiritual emotion. Now we're doing it out of philosophy, reasoning, some feeling for the whole thing, obviously, because we have an example who's inspiring us. So we want to do imitation of a good thing is a good thing, right? When I was young and I met some devotees on my way to Jamaica in Miami. It's part of my long story. We all have one. In the morning, I asked one of the devotees, his name was Navayovana. I said, why do you guys shave your heads? Which wasn't a popular thing to do in those days. And he said, because Prabhupada shaved his head. That might not be a very good answer from most people's point of view, but I really liked that. They really love him. I like that. Their guru, they love him. And they said, so that's how they do the same, they follow like that. I just found that very charming, very charming, inspiring. But the story I want to tell, of course, the famous story from Mahabharata. I think in Mahabharata, when Krishna is invited to the royal assembly, presided over by Duryodhana in Hastinapur, and a huge reception was arranged for kettle drums and bugles, and the whole, royal feast was prepared, and so Krishna's coming. Duryodhana wanted to win the favor of Krishna, and Krishna came and ignored the whole procession and went to the house of Vidura. And Vidura was a not of royal blood, if you will. He was just insignificant from an ordinary social point of view. person in the community, but he was a staunch devotee of Krishna. So he went to Uddhava's house, but no, it's not Uddhava, excuse me, Vidura's house. Did I say Vidura?
Yeah.
Yeah, Vidura's house. But Vidura wasn't there. His wife was there, who was also a devotee of Krishna. Duryodhana wasn't really a devotee. He wanted Krishna for his own purposes. And some of his purposes were such that they included his enmity towards the Pandavas, who were Krishna's devotees. So Krishna just ignored him. And all of the arrangements he made, which were so fitting for a godly figure or a saintly person or a celebrity, right? So instead he went to Vidura's house and he said, "I'm hungry. Where's Vidura?" She said, "He's not here." "Well, I'm hungry. Feed me." She said, "We don't have anything." And he said, "Well, there's some bananas hanging there, you know." And so she picked the bananas, and she was in such ecstasy that Krishna had come to her house, and so like ecstatically, bewildered by that she peeled the bananas and gave Krishna the peels and threw away the banana. In her ecstasy, she was, and of course, it was heard that, well, where's Krishna? Where did he go? Because Duryodhana is waiting for him to come into the assembly, and he skipped the whole procession. He went to Vidura's house. So Vidura heard that, so he went with Narada to his house, and there was Krishna eating the peels. So Vidura said, "It's incredible that Krishna's come to my house," and Narada said, "Yeah, but he's eating the peels, right?" So what are the banana peels compared to the royal food and the 10-course meal that was prepared for him? So he's eating the bhakti, right? This is what he lives on. And that's what we live on too. We don't eat, we honor the remnants of Krishna, right? So anyway, the point here is that the feeling, the emotion, the intention, Bhavagrahi Janardana, it's another way that Krishna's spoken of, is that he accepts the feeling of the devotees, the heart's in the right place. When we were younger, it's still the fact now, Sanskrit pronunciations may not always be very accurate, but we used to, in the early days when I joined, and when I was after a few months joining, I came to the Los Angeles temple, which was Prabhupada's headquarters there, where I got initiated. And so after the Mangal Artik, everyone would, which was about 4:30 in the morning, would have some services, or they would chant japa. And then Prabhupada would go on a walk and come back and give the class. But at about 6:30 in the morning, we would gather around Prabhupada's Vyasasan and sit, and we would chant the Guru Vastakam again, which was a kind of like a Guru puja of sorts, worship of the Guru. And so we were chanting Vande Guru Shri, Vande Guru Shri Chat. How's it go? Vande Guru Shri Chat. So Prabhupada's saying Vande Guru, which means cow instead of Guru. For my respects to the Guru, lotus feet of the Guru. In his hearing, we were offering our respects to the lotus feet of the cow. Not a bad thing, but anyway. Of course, he was accepting it about that and that type of thing. Pujapad Sridhar said, "Yes, and Krishna will hear the pronunciation is wrong, and he will say, 'I think you meant this, right? I think you meant to say it like this.' So that's just detail, but I'm accepting it because your heart is in the right place." So it's an important question, but the answer to your question is the very fact that, as I said earlier, that you're asking the question is the way to is the solution to the problem, to be such an introspective devotee with regard to one's practice, and not allow oneself to just be on kind of automatic. It should be, as I was saying last night, our ordinary life should be on automatic. It goes on automatically, and meanwhile, my heart is beating for bhakti. And everything else becomes music in the background. We can't let the bhakti become music. And our main focus, what's most important, we can put bhakti down. That's the first thing we'll put down. And everything else is more important. Then we have to gradually not too gradually, reverse that, right? So it's good that you think like that. And I'll be coming to see you in about in the middle of December. So I'll check it out, what you're doing there, and see, make sure you're properly motivated. I'll help you. That's the point. So again, I mentioned that earlier. We have our guru to turn to, and but typically, as I say, if you're asking the question, it's probably not an issue. And of course, I say also there'll be, well, the symptoms, the result will be different. If I'm watering a weed, the result will be different than if I'm watering the plant, right? If I'm watering the plant, I'll feel myself becoming detached. Although I have propensities that I'd like to act according to, I should become, as a result of bhakti, more flexible. Whatever is required for serving Krishna, I'll rise to the occasion. In the beginning, I may only be able to do these things because those things I like to do, and I'll do them for Krishna. We shouldn't give things to Krishna. We should give ourselves to Krishna. Do what you like with me, use me as you like. This is the idea. If our bhakti is mixed with karma, then we'll take things that we like to do and do them for Krishna. I mean, we can do that as well in the context of Shuddha Bhakti. But if we can't do things that we don't necessarily like to do for Krishna, then we can see to that extent our bhakti is mixed. Krishna says in the Gita, yat karoshi yat ashnasi yat chahosi yat asi. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, give away, do it for me. That's nice, but that's bhakti mixed with karma. Whereas in Shuddha Bhakti and pure Bhakti, it's not whatever we do, we give to Krishna. We give ourselves to Krishna. And we do whatever is suitable, required, asked of us, expected of us in any given situation. Okay, next, another question.
There was another question from last week, but they're not here right now. So do you want to take that question, or do you want to go to the audience?
Okay, we can turn to the audience. Yes.
Would you talk about the Govardhan mantra that you've been saying?
Oh, the question is about a Govardhan, verse about Govardhan. I think that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur introduced this verse to his disciples. But I came across it some time ago and incorporated it into my bhajan, worship, and so forth. But it's a simple verse. I should mention that as we were speaking the other night on the Tirubhava day, honoring the day that Prabhupada departed from the world, entered Samadhi, let's say, Goloka, that he was at that time, he was preoccupied with the Govardhan. He was writing about the Brahma Vimohan Leela, which is a Sakirasa Leela. And he was desiring to go to Govardhan Hill during the Kartik and take a bullock cart around the hill, which is customary if you can't walk around, go with the cows and so forth. And so he was, Govardhan was looming large, on his internal radar, and for good reason. Because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in a broad sense, taught that our place is at Govardhan, in Madhurya Rasa, in the service of Radha, and with a place at Govardhan. And this is the point I wanted to make, Saraswati Thakur, in the final days, the latter days of his manifest presence, he was said to be preoccupied with Dasa Goswami, Raghunatha Dasa Goswami, who was a worshiper of Govardhan, by way of the fact that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him the stone from Govardhan. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Vrindavan, one Saraswati, I think, forget his entire name or title, gave Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the stone, little stone from Govardhan, right? And he used to keep that stone around his neck, and he would worship it by taking the stone off and bathing the stone with his tears. Right? But he had a gunjamala, which is a little like necklace made from these gunja beads that grow readily in Vrindavan. They're white, red, black, and so this is a typical ornamentation, decoration for Krishna and his friends that is rustic in nature rather than opulent, and rustic in corresponds with the rustic lifestyle of his cowherd Leelas. So there are many descriptions of him with the Gunjamala and so on, wearing. So anyway, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would wear the Gunjamala around his neck also, or he would put the Gunjamala around his neck at the time of worshiping the Srila, which was basically bathing him with his tears. The implication, of course, is the Srila doesn't require, I want to say, the closer you get to Krishna, the more intimate the love goes, the less the paraphernalia that he's worshipped with, or even the worship is required. Because in worship, there is the worshipper and the object of worship and the distance between the two. But in love, there's no distance between the two. Therefore, Radharani says, if you say, I love you, you know nothing about love. Because in love, there is no I, there is no you. There's only we. A dynamic union. We is one. Right? There are not two and we, that's one. So, so while in love that is driven by the motivated, inspired by the majesty of the Godhead, as much as it brings us out of the material world and into the proximity of the God, at the same time, it also keeps us at some distance from him, the distance of awe, the distance of reverence, enough room to bow down, stretch out your whole body and lie down, which is an Indian custom, done about the whole, instead of just like this, namaste, physically, giving the whole body. So that's some distance, right? But and so let's say, for example, the worship of the Narayana, the Srila, the Shaligram. Within there tends to be so many rules for that, and so much paraphernalia is required. So when we get to the Govardhan Srila, Mahaprabhu only had his heart to offer. That's all. He gave the stone to Raghunatha Das Goswami and told him, worship the stone as Krishna, offered some sweet and some water from the Ganga, some manjari, some buds, some blossoms, I should say, from the Tulsi plant. Simple. People thought, Raghunatha Das is not a Brahmin, the Brahmin class, so Mahaprabhu didn't allow him to worship the Shaligram Srila. He gave him some other stone from Govardhan, and they made quite a misunderstanding, right? So that stone, of course, is still, you can have a darshan of that stone. It's at the Radha Gokulananda temple there, where Radha Gokulananda are in Vrindavan, and the stone has a thumbprint in it. I think what's coming from Mahaprabhu, the stone melted in his touch. It's very smooth, and you can see the print of the thumb there, small stone like this. So this was Mahaprabhu's worship. He gave it to Raghunatha Das, but Das Goswami wrote also some beautiful prayers in glorification of Govardhan, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was preoccupied with those, repeating those again and again in the last final days of his presence amongst his students before his passing on. So Govardhan, important place. And what was the question?
just to speak about the
Oh, the
mantra.
verse, the verse, right? The verse about. So it's a simple verse. Namaste Giriraja. So namaste means nama, not me. I offer myself. I'm not taking, I'm giving entirely of myself to Giriraj. Raja means king, and Giri means hill, the king of hills. Namaste Girirajaya.
Namaste, Girirajaya.
Shri Govardhana Namane. And Namane, his name is Sri Govardhan. Govardhan, Go means cow. Vardhana means to like increase or to nourish. So he who nourishes the cows with grasses, but Go also means the senses. So it nourishes the senses of the devotees, Govardhan. The senses of Krishna, I should say, by providing all types of facilities, the hill does, for pleasing the senses of Krishna, which pleases the senses of the devotees, because their senses are aimed at pleasing the senses of Krishna. So different meanings for Govardhan, but that's his name, that hill and that mountain, Govardhana. Namaste Girirajaya, Shri Govardhana Namani. Sesha Klesha Nashaya. Nashaya means to destroy. So Sesha Klesha. All the struggles of material existence, all the arising as they do from attachments, our pains, our troubles, they have their genesis, their source. They come from our attachments. And so he will destroy all our attachments, Paramananda Dayini, by giving us Paramananda. Dayini means to give us the Paramananda, the supreme bliss. Now, of course, if you want to wax a little bit in the direction of Sakyarasa, it's said that Govardhan is a hill and he is Krishna, but he's also a devotee of Krishna, Haridas, Bari, the best of Krishna's servants. And his mood is in friendly love, eternal love, Sakyaras, which Mahobhagyam, Nanda Gopa Bhajopasam, Yan Mitram, Paramanandam, Purna Brahma Sanatanam. One of the ways of translating this to Goswami, this is a famous verse from Brahma's prayers, the center of Brahma's prayers after he saw the Aishvarya of Krishna, understood Krishna is the source of all divinity. He spontaneously recited over 30 prayers, 30-some prayers. The center of them all is this verse. Oh, how fortunate are the people of Braj under the care of Nanda, Krishna's father, the king of the cowherds. Yan Mitram Paramanandam, he said. Because why are they fortunate? Because he who is the Purna Brahma is their Sanatana, eternal friend. And that friendship is the Paramananda, the highest bliss, is what he says. So he's speaking directly. This verse has deep and broad explanations. The broader explanation is that everybody in Braj starts with Sakya. When Prabhupada was asked by his disciple Rishikesh, who had spent time in Gaudiya Math, and he was asking Prabhupada, is everybody in our line in the Madhurya Rasa Manjari Bhav? And Prabhupada said, down to Sakya. That's what he said, down to Sakya. So from Sakya. So the point here is that this is the land of friendship. It's permeated by Madhurya Rasa. That's true. Sridhar Maharaj told me, just like the material world is permeated by sexual attraction, the whole of the Braj is permeated by Madhurya Rasa. That's what's going on. Right? Krishna is involved in a romantic comedy, romantic intrigue with Radha. And there are different, roles in the drama that different devotees are playing in different moods, parental roles, friendly roles, roles of servants, and so on and so forth, right? So that's true. But in another sense also, it's the land of friendship because it begins with friendship in that the four mellows or emotions, spiritual emotions that Krishna's, that the love of Krishna arises out of there, these self-defining emotions are the emotion of servitude, friendship, parental love, and romantic love, right? These four. And Rupa Goswami has explained to us that the dasya, the servile love, there is tinged with sakya. Mm-hmm. And then there's sakya, and that in the reverse order, that sakya could be tinged with dasya. In other words, one of them is prominent. So they're defined, the dasyas, as being in dasya ras, but still there's an element of sakya combined with that. So begins there. You can have sakya combined with dasya. So they're sakas, but some influence of dasyas there. Or there could be sakya and have some influence of vatsalya also. So sakya is going throughout, as you can see. Sakya is there in the dasya. We find it. Sakya is there in sakya, obviously. Sakya can be found also touched with vatsalya. And then in the narmasakas, we have das, we have sakya touched by, influenced by madhurya, or the romantic love, those who facilitate and participate in Krishna's romantic life, assisting him. So it pervades the whole realm. That's the broader sense. He says, Yanmitram Paramanandam, you're the friend of everyone in Braj. Every friendship is that. This is a land of friendship. This is what it is. In a more specific sense, and relative to Brahma's own spiritual development, he's speaking more directly about the cowherd boys that he's just experienced, who are the vessels of the friendly love that he himself was blessed to attain at the time of his initiation, at the dawn of creation, when he received shiksha from Krishna in the 4 slokas that represent the seed of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. And we find that in the Bhagavatam, that story in the Bhagavatam itself, and then supplementary literatures, I should say, or the Shruti that precedes the Bhagavatam, like Gopala and the Upanishad. On the other end of the spectrum, Brahma Samhita, they fill in some details. Brahma received the Gopal mantra, right? 18-syllable Gopal mantra at this time. So, but in the Bhagavatam, it's clear that he was blessed by Krishna to attain Sakya Prem. It's very clear in the language there. It's brought out in the commentary of my Guru Maharaj, and that of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as well. So Brahma is saying this verse is the center of all of his prayers. And from a more focused, rather than the broader perspective that the verse lends itself to, I've interpreted it in this way, as Jiva Goswami has in one of his commentaries. Brahma is speaking about the cowherd boys themselves. And they are the Paramananda, the supreme bliss. Of course, everybody thinks that their bliss is the supreme, and they're all right. So but this is what Brahma is saying. So Paramananda died. He gives the Paramananda. You can look at it in a broad way. He gives Sakyaras, by which all your troubles will go away. Girirajaya. He makes you one with him. He gives you the same sentiment. He looked at differently, of course, as well, from romantic, Madhurya point of view, but that helps. A little explanation of that verse. Okay, what else? We have another question here. Do we have one there?
Maybe we don't have one here, but yeah, I would just ask from there.
We have one here. Yes, Gayatri.
So the other night you were speaking about one-pointedness. Would you say that that goes with the reply you gave to Braja Sundari, that one-pointedness means that we try to give ourselves to Krishna at all times? Or do you have anything else to say on that? How are we one-pointed?
Bhagavad Gita says, Bahu shaka hyanantascha samado na vihite. Bahu shaka hyanantascha samado na. That one whose intelligence is many branched. Bahu shaka. Shaka here means branches. Bahu, many branched. Bahu shaka hyanantascha. Unlimited, like it's just like too voracious of a intellectual attitude, splayed out mind. Samadhona, they cannot attain samadhi. And so Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kuranandana bahushaka hirantascha samadhona briyate. So the first half of the verse speaks about the one-mindedness. The second half speaks about being splayed out. Many interests. So what does it mean then to be one-minded? Vyavasayatmika buddhi. What buddhi? Vyavasayatmika buddhi. Buddhi means intelligence, but discrimination. So discrimination is one-pointed. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur then has explained what that one-mindedness is. Right? Vyavasayatmika buddhi. What is the next part? Ekeha. One-mindedness. And one's intelligence, he's talking about yoga, right? What chapter is that in? Is it second chapter? Okay. He's talking about fixing the mind in yoga. That's the second part of the second chapter where Krishna starts to speak about how to realize what he spoke about earlier, that there's a difference between you, Arjuna, and your body, and etc. So yoga is to put the Sankhya, the theory, in practice, and so Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha kurunandana. Kurunandana, talking to Arjuna, Kurunandana, dear one, the gurus. Your mind, your intelligence should be one-pointed, right? I'm just emphasizing, going over it again. Whereas those whose minds are splayed out, intelligence is splayed out, they never attain samadhi. No. So what does it mean? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur answers the question. And what does he say? In his commentary, and Prabhupada's commentary follows it as well. It's probably there in Baladev Vibhushan's commentary also. These Vishwanath and Baladev were the original Gaudiya commentators on the Gita. Prabhupada dedicated his own Bhagavad Gita commentary to Baladev Vibhushan, whose lead he follows. But the comment, I'm sure anyway, of Prabhupada and of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado, Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutupi. This is what it means to be one-minded. This is a verse from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Uvastakam, last verse. It says that by the grace of the, Yasya Prasada, by the mercy of Krishna, to extend it, by the mercy of Krishna, one gets a guru. By the mercy of the guru, one gets Krishna. By pleasing the guru, by satisfying the guru, Krishna will be pleased. He says, this is what it means to be, this is the focus. Because Krishna has come to us most prominently in the form of the guru to teach us by precept and by example. So that should be our focus. Guru Seva, Guru Nishta. That is how they have answered the question, what it means to be one-mindedness. And that will include it in what you asked about, of course, being introspective about your motives, what I want to please Krishna. And I have Krishna's come to me in this form, most prominently. And so my focus should be there. That is the recipe for samadhi. Now, Prabhupada used to say, what did he used to say? Work now, samadhi later. Work is to get the other interests out of your head and just get this one there, one focus, and then you can have samadhi. But otherwise, one-mindedness. It's typical in other transcendental paths like the Gyan Marg or the Yoga Marg to practice just fixing your mind on one thing, like a candle, right, or something like that. Just so get it off of everything. Just fix it on one. This is their idea. Fix it on one thing, and then you let go of that thing also, and you enter into what is it called? That samadhi. I forget. There's two terms. Nearly called samadhi. Nearly called samadhi. And I heard one guy, I had to repeat it, but he said, doesn't matter. Could be a cockroach. And he was commentating on the Gita, you know. Krishna's saying, put all your attention on me. I said, you become a cockroach. It'll never happen to you. So no, the object, it's not just fix your mind on any one thing. That has value and that will enable you to do the thing, if it's an active thing, that much better, right? I mean, it's a practical principle. If you want to be proficient, let's say in sports, you got to, you know, and be in a national light or something of the World Cup, whatever, you know, professional, you got to be pretty one-minded, you know. They go into like a training camp or something for so many months, and, you know. So with regard to anything, you have to focus, so to speak of this. But here, the point is also that it's not just to fix your mind on anything. We fix our mind on Krishna, and we don't let go. We couldn't, because he won't let go of us. That's the candle might, you know, you could give up. That's what Krishna, you know, there's something positive there. It's not just emptying the mind out, chitta buddhi nirodha, so cleansing the chitta, the consciousness of anything. That is like you go to a forest and you find a pond and you know, a deer and it just jumped in it trying to get away from a mountain lion. So you've arrived at the pond and it's all these waves are going and that's one thing, right? If you arrive at the pond and it's just peaceful, oh, then that's very nice, right? Very, very nice, so peaceful. So the first example is like the material world. The pond is being disturbed. One thing is chasing another. The hunters are being hunted. Those who are hunting should look over their shoulder and find, oh, I'm being hunted. That's why I'm hunting, because I'm being hunted. If I don't hunt, someone will hunt me down. We're takers. We're taking, we're exploiting. And so nature wants to take back naturally. So the mind is disturbed in that situation, fearful, anxious, and so forth. So in yoga, then the mind becomes peaceful, like a pond, a beautiful pond in the forest, just completely still and peaceful. So this is the objective in Ashtanga yoga, for example, another path, to make the mind completely still. Peace, 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 shanti, shanti, shanti. Very nice. But our idea is a little bit different. We want peace and love, both things, peace and love. Now, peace is inside of love, but there's a lot of movement in love also. There's ups and downs in love. It's exciting, right? So to continue with the analogy of the pond, it's one thing if it's completely peaceful. It's another thing, though, if you take a stone and you throw it in the pond, and then it creates concentric ripples. It's still peaceful, but now it's beautiful. You take another stone, throw it in the same place, another stone, 108 stones, all in the same center. The concentric ripples only. So you've taken it and added music to it, something like that, right? So this is peace and love, movement in transcendence that's different than the movement in material life, the hunters and the hunted, because all the movement is properly centered. It's all centered on the center. God is actually the center. So we all move in relation to the center, then we're not moving against one another. We're all moving from the center, and the center is energizing, nourishing all of us, like the stomach energizes the whole body. If we put food in the stomach, we put food in our nose or our ear, well, it's not going to work. So you can't argue with Krishna for being the center. He just is. And if you get to know him, you think, yeah, he is the center. That's his position. Right? He can nourish everyone. So we should be one-minded in Krishna Bhakti, and practically speaking, that plays out by having our focus on Sri Guru. Another question? What is the time?
20.
Done. We have 10 more minutes.
I've got a question about that.
Here's a question. Yes.
So I was reading in Jack Dharma the other day, and Gopala Guru Swami was going through the different contributions of devotees, and you mentioned the twofold path, the external path and the internal. He said the internal came through Sri Damodar Goswami, and then came out through the writings of Raghunatha Dasa, and then the external, they went from Sri Damodar to Krishna Pandit and then to Dhyana Chandra Goswami.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you would kind of describe what is this internal and external about these writings.
Well, I think that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is talking about the fact that Dhyana Chandra Goswami developed a padati, or a kind of a handbook for Raganuga Bhakti and its pursuit in Manjari Bhav. And what he did there was it's basically 95% different verses and mantras and procedures that the devotee can incorporate into their everyday worship. Rise in the morning, do this, put on tilak, say this mantra, offer obeisance to Krishna, to Radha, to the Astasakis. Here's the mantra for the Astamanjaris, and for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for Gadadhar, and so forth. It's like that. It's so he externalized, I guess I would say, the internal experience of, he gave external expressions that corresponded with the internal experience of Raghunatha Goswami that he writes about, and as such that he is referred to as the Prayojan Tattvacharya. He has written a number of verses that are expressions of his internal life that he's seeing, so to speak. He's witnessing his Leela Seva internally, and then writing poetry about it, glorifying Radha and Krishna. And there have been some commentaries over the centuries that show he's seeing this, and this is why he's saying that, and then his mind goes here and goes here. It's not showing. It's not something that you can like follow, so to speak, a handbook, but it's just expressions of his own internal experience in the Leela, rather than a kind of a book of procedures that could help you move in that particular direction. So external, internal. It could also be said that the inner life of Raghunatha Das Goswami arose out of the instructions given to him by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that don't eat, don't overeat, don't overdress, something like that. He gave, don't talk to ordinary people about ordinary things and waste your time. Absorb yourself in Krishna Katha, and in your mind worship Radha and Krishna, and talk to Sri Damodar about it. So there's nothing that we have. There are some verses said to have been written by Sri Damodar Goswami, but they're not available. So the idea there, it could be taken that what Raghunatha Das Goswami did was he, without any specific and detailed external instructions as to how to conduct yourself in order to attain that inner state, he absorbed himself in, well, the worship of the Govardhan Srila, as Mahaprabhu instructed, and the chanting of Krishna Nam, and it all came about. So sometimes it's been thought of like that, rather than making an exoteric whole way to do Raganuga Bhakti, you can, I'll give you an example of sometimes the way this is looked at. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Raghavartma Chandrika says that with regard to serving in an internal meditative body, one can receive instructions from the Guru, Diksha Guru or a Siksha Guru about this. Or simply by one's practice, in the context of the practice, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. As Krishna says in the Gita, and he cites this verse, Krishna gives the intelligence by which to come to him. So that would be some look at it like that. That's the internal path. The external path is you get some help from outside. Now, I like to think that Bhaktivinoda himself combined the two, because he said, simply practice and it will arise. And in due course, as it arises, then the Guru will give some editing and help. Others say, oh, the Guru has to give you the Siddha Deha, and without that, you're not doing Raganuga Bhakti. Well, there's no example of Mahaprabhu or giving such to, the nice example in Narottam Charita, the life of Narottam Thakur, that he was doing some service, and in the context of his service, he realized himself as Champaklata, and his service was bringing milk, I think, at midday for the Leela. So he went to Raghunatha Goswami to get confirmation. Raghunatha Goswami confirmed, yes. So this is an ancient example of the exact same way that Bhaktivinoda Thakur taught, right? Rather than, okay, you come to the Guru says, you are this Gopa or this Gopi, and you practice like this, and here's a map, and details and mantras and so forth. And you, although you're not qualified to meditate, you start anyway now, try it. There may be some place for that. If it works, good. But the other side is, as we sang the other day, I think some of you were there for Bhaktivinoda's Sri Nam Mahatmya at the end of his book Saranagati, glories of the name. The name will give you a spiritual form, your spiritual form, and introduce you to the Leela, take you there. See, no one can argue with this. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's whole method. Shikshastakam is the whole method from beginning to end, from cleansing the heart to love and separation to love and union. The whole thing is there through all the stages. You can read my commentary on Shikshastakam. There's no mention of Siddha Pranali there. So this is a later development through Gopal Guru Goswami, Dhyan Chandra Goswami. But even in the modern times, what we find in the name of that practice, we find that things are added or stressed there that aren't found in the Parati of Dhyan Chandra, Gopal Guru Goswami. So it's a little bit of a further emphasis on that may be questionable, let's say. But Bhaktivinoda has a balance between the two, right? So Guru is there to help, but the internal life arises from the practices, from the mantra. It's all there. He doesn't make it up, doesn't give you something that you don't already have. Probably should say Krishna consciousness in our original position. Just like in Ramanuja Sampradaya, where Jiva Goswami looked to describe best, to get help for describing his notion of the nature of the Atma, of the Jiva. And there they say, of course, that the Jiva is Gyan Swarup. So it is a unit of consciousness and knowledge. And the knowledge is two types. Dharmi Bhuta, Dharmi Bhuta again, I guess Dharma means self-knowledge. I am. I am. And this Dharmi Bhuta is that which serves, among other things, as evidence that each of us is individuals. I am, you are. Each of us feels that subjectively, right? So this is one of the ways in which the jiva is a unit of knowledge, consciousness, Gyan Swarup. The other is called Dharma Bhuta Gyan, and Dharma Bhuta Gyan contracts and expands. The Dharma Bhuta doesn't contract or expand. So we always think, even in conditioned life, even under the influence of karma, we think, I am. There's an underlying deep sense of that even transcends that I am American or this or that or another thing, which all can change. Even as it changes, the I am doesn't change, right? So the Dharma Bhuta Gyan expands and contracts, and the contraction of it is the influence of karma, which is anadi, so it's beginningless, but that karma is removed by the bestowal of bhakti and the subsequent practice of bhakti, which also constitutes bestowal, right? In extended sense, that causes then the contraction, well, to go away, and expansion of the original knowledge to occur. The original, which includes knowledge of Ishwar, of Bhagavan himself. So it's inherent, it's the idea in the jiva. So therefore, Krishna consciousness is your original consciousness, even though you never fell from Vaikuntha at the same time. So you can see what Prabhupada was talking about. You can get a better, when you really look into what Bhakti Vinod is saying there, you can better harmonize these things. So, right, so by the practice, then you will arrive at your original consciousness, right? The Dharma Bhuta Gyan will expand and include knowledge of Krishna. That means knowledge of who you are in relation to him, right? So, there are some thoughts on that. Two ways in which Bhakti Vinod thought about the Rag Bhakti. All right, so I think this probably takes us to the end of the hour. Nice to be with you all. I see some of the devotees here. Let's turn the page. Who else is with us? There's Murali Dar, Vijay Kumar, I see. So many. That looks like a disciple of Tulananda Maharaj, a peacock. So many. So many names, but a lot of them don't have pictures, so I can't read them from here. Anyway, nice to be with you all. And tomorrow I go to Bhaktivan, Kansas. Look forward to that, seeing Printer Nugent with Tasaki and the devotees there. And then I'll be back in Audarya by next Sunday, and we'll tune in then. Oh, Premanande. Hari Hari.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to be with you. Okay. What's next? Travel. Kirtan.
What's
Your
next?
time.
You'll probably hear.
It's on some book.
Sorry?
That's good.
What's
What's
next?
next?
So,
I think we're going on a walk.
Can I burst?
On the greenway
I
is
can
just down the street and then around the corner. And we'll walk over there and come back. And then eat.
Sounds good.
And if folks don't feel like walking, they can stay here.
Walk or stay. You got it. Walk or stay.
Yeah, so like I mentioned in the chat, I usually will check for updates, but I haven't gotten anything. So I guess there are no updates as of now, but just be aware of your email. Is Sri Krishna still here? He might know. No, doesn't look like it. Anyway, thank you everyone.